In this video, we're going to connect to a Microsoft SQL server. So here I'm going to simply select Microsoft SQL, and it pulls up the SQL servers that are available. So this is the instance that's available on my machine. Now I can pick up a database as well, but I'm not going to. The hope is that I'm going to let VerbaGPT figure out what database and tables are relevant to the query that I make. So after just selecting SQL, I'm going to go to the talk page. So quite simple. It says ready to talk. It's connected to SQL Express SQL Server, and I'm going to ask it a question. Now I know that I have a database called dbtest01. There's a table called d_abalone on it. That is a table that has a column called ring. So I'm going to ask it a question using that table. The question is, give me a neural network and linear regression model to predict rings. Compare their performance. Okay, so give me a neural network and linear regression model to predict rings, compare their performance. So this is quite a complex question, so not straightforward. So we are asking you to build a predictive model, not just one, but two. One of them is a little more straightforward, linear regression. The other one is a neural network approach. And it's kind of interesting that a neural network, which is a large language model, I'm asking a neural network to build a neural network. And to create those models, but also compare their performance. And it takes a little while to run because this is running GPT-4, which is more compute intensive. And the hope is that the LLM is going to be competent enough to put together code that will help answer that question. So here is our answer. So it put together an explanation of the code itself, and then the code part of it is in this editable code window. And as you can see, it's not a straightforward piece of code. It's doing a bunch of things here. It's even converting one of the categorical columns into sort of a dummy column or 0-1 column, binary column, and it's doing fitting the models and then trying to compute mean squared error as well. Okay, so I'm going to execute the code here and see if we can get our answer. So great. So the neural network model has a mean squared error of 4.47 and linear regression is 5.01. So the neural network performs better because we want the mean squared error to be lower. So this is quite interesting that just asking a simple question, the LLM was able to answer it with help from VerbaGPT, because the neat thing about VerbaGPT is the LLM at no point has direct access to the data. So the VerbaGPT has to make those bridges behind the scenes, and it does so preserving privacy of the data. So that's the key focus of VerbaGPT, is data privacy. Okay, so I'm going to show you a really cool feature here. So there's a magic command. So I'm going to say report, and then that bracket there, and then click enter. And what I'm trying to accomplish here is I'm going to feed in the code and the resulting mean squared error back into the LLM, and I'm going to ask it to prepare a report for me of what it did. So that's quite interesting because it's like, okay, not only can large language models be great for code generation, but we know that they're obviously very good at writing. And here in VerbaGPT it's kind of interesting because we have isolated the strengths of both. So when we're doing code generation, we have isolated that layer in VerbaGPT so that there's no hallucinations going on, like it runs on the underlying data. So the answers you get are really the answers on your data, so there's no sort of making up of things. But when we're trying to generate the report, we give it more of a sort of a free rein there. So it's like, it can look at the code, it can try and describe that, but it won't be making up any numbers there. But we allow it to be a little bit more creative in putting together the report. So it's taking a while to generate because it has to generate a lot more words to put together a report for us. So it's doing that here, and there we go. Report on predicting abalone age. Now that's very interesting. This is super interesting because at no point, as I mentioned, the LLM has access to the data, but just by looking at my table name and what kind of schema it has, features it has, the LLM is able to understand that I'm actually asking about a very famous, what I'm using is a very famous data set, and it is pulling this information from the internet, or I'm pretty sure that that's what it's doing. But it's really cool because it brings together the strengths of it, that our data is private. It never accessed the data, but still, if our data is actually a public piece of data, which in this case it was, it's able to fetch from the internet additional details about it. So it actually is describing the whole thing. Like, what is this data set? And this data set is from this. It has this many examples, which it does. And then what are the features it has? This is amazing. So, and then the method. And then it's describing what it did in this code. So it's saying, I did this. I did one hot encoding on the column there, created females, males, 80% of that data for training, 20% for testing. 2 machine learning models were used. I mean, this is really this is really top notch here, I have to say. The models were evaluated on this mean squared error, the results. So these are our results. The neural network achieved a lower mean squared error that was able to capture more complex pattern than a simple linear relationship. And then it also has some ways for us to improve the data, has a conclusion there. So yeah, really, really awesome stuff. So the way that you can do this in VerbaGPT is by, after you run the model, you can just use this sort of magic command, report, and then bracket, and then it feeds in just the code part and the result part back to the LLM, along with an augmented sort of a prompt for it, because it asks her to behave a certain way, and then it generates this report for us, which is quite useful to do, because I mean, this is basically a pretty comprehensive report here. So just wanted to show off this feature. It's sort of a brand new add to VerbaGPT, so hope you enjoyed it. If you have any ideas of things that I can try, please let me know. Comment below, or contact me on LinkedIn, and let me know your thoughts there. Stay tuned for more, and thank you for watching.